What's going on there, folks? Good afternoon. It is the Earthmaster here on this weekend, Christmas weekend here in the States. It is the 24th of December, 2022, about 12:30 p.m. here in the west coast of California, where we're still seeing some activity ramping up and down the plate boundary here along the Pacific Plate, Eastern Pacific, and some adjacent plates down here to the south. Things kind of ramping up, definitely. We just had a 4.1 Northern California a short time ago. Let's go ahead and check out some specifics out here on the display capture. There's that 4.1. This is the USGS map. Going to be all magnitudes here for the states. 4.0 and above for international. 4.1 coming in just a short time ago, as mentioned. About 20 kilometers deep here into our area that we've seen the 6.4 kickoff over the last few days it struck. But I want to show you guys the 7 days magnitude map here of the earthquake activity in Northern California. Coming up upon 200 earthquakes. Now we still are looking at that migrational pattern here. And some of that's getting a little bit deeper as well into the subduction level of the Cascadia subduction zone. Now, there's definitely been a lot more earthquake activity than what is being reported there on the map. I've been watching this all night, and yesterday it seems like they cut off a few hours of earthquake reporting unless it's above a certain level. Then it's kind of hard for them to ignore that type of activity. But it seems as though they've just halted some of the smaller quakes. I'm talking about probably the one-pointers and below. But we see them a lot on the Petrolia station and also the Dinsmore station when they come in, but not being reported here by the USGS on this map. So whatever their reasoning is, that's theirs. They're probably getting, super far behind on far as reviewing these quakes, because it does take time to review every single quake out here. Some of these quakes out into the southern end of the Cascadia have not been reviewed yet, and they are still under automatic status. So nobody's reviewed them. Nobody's even looked at them. They could be larger. They could be deeper. So, yeah, there's a little process involved in reviewing all those quakes, and it's a pretty busy time of the year. And, of course, it's a weekend. So, yeah, it might take them a little while, maybe next week to get to it, maybe even afterwards. So 4.1 coming into the Northern California area. Not a big quake, but it's one of the larger aftershocks so far. From this sequence of earthquakes there in Northern California. Few folks did report feeling this 4.1 around Eureka, McKinleyville, Fortuna area. All reported some light shaking. Very light compared to what the 6.4 produced a couple days ago. There was some widespread damage out there throughout the communities and some injuries as well. So looking at the broader scale, we still got quite a bit of pressure gradients out here along the west coast. Includes the areas of the Eastern Pacific and adjacent plates. We have seen a little bit of activity further west, some deeper movement quakes around the Izu Trench. Look at this quake, 521 kilometers deep. So it's trying. The general plate movement here, I like to show this general plate movement because that's where we see the majority of the stress built up out here along the Pacific Plate. You got subduction zone levels here where the arrows meet. Those are one plate sliding underneath the other. And same for this area, even though it's not marked. There's many different subduction zones around the Filipino plate, areas around Papua New Guinea, and of course New Zealand down there. But we're watching this area around the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench because that's been very quiet for a little while. And it's got a super high accumulated slip rate for this zone. And it kind of looks like, at least on the map here, we're trying to get movement going with these deeper quakes in the area, but so far no major adjustment being produced over here along the west coast or the western Pacific. So I am leaving up the earthquake watch due to the increasing activity out here in Northern California, not only there but also up and down the plates as noted here on the globe. We can see that line of activity stretching pretty nicely from about Vancouver up or off the coast of Canada. Vancouver is way south. Up here in Canada, they had a 4.5 near the Prince Rupert area and a 4.0 roughly within minutes of each other, just about 1 o'clock in the morning. That activity continuing down through the Northern California area, also regions off the coast of Mexico and looks like all the way down to Costa Rica area, all seeing some movement in the 4 range. So we're just going to keep an eye on it. Some of these quakes not being reported by the USGS. Obviously, we've seen some 4s. Again, got to remember it's a weekend. It's Christmas time. A lot of people have this time of year off. And, it may take them next week before they get some of this activity on the globe or on the map. So 4.5, they are listing. And a lot of times these earthquakes will be sent out preliminary as far as their computer system goes. The whole computer program will analyze numerous seismograph stations from the different magnitudes and the depths and the readings of it, and make an assumption or somewhat of an accurate magnitude and depth and location, and put it out as a preliminary earthquake. But sometimes it does get reviewed. Looks like they at least have some people there monitoring the activity. This one has been reviewed, the 4.5. They're off the coast of Mexico. But gotta remember, this is not empty. It's definitely showing some activity here on the globe, and it's there. Continual pressure activity along the eastern Pacific and adjacent plates. And that is stretching all the way down, like I mentioned, to Costa Rica up here, and then down south through the Peru-Chile Trench, where we're seeing a pretty good swarm of activity, including one earthquake here in the last hour of 5.0. That one coming into the San Antonio de los Cobres, Argentina area. Well, this is not at the surface. This is a very deep earthquake, 171 kilometers into the Peru-Chile Trench. This area has seen a little, I'd say definitely a good-sized uptick in movement over the last couple days. And I'm sure there's more than that. There they are. They're hiding. I was wondering about that. Get on the map here, or kind of zoom out, and it only shows a few, but we got to zoom in to see this little swarm that's occurring underneath this area where the 5.0 struck. Now, the magnitudes here are not large, but the depth of these earthquakes are important here into the Peru-Chile Trench, because as we get this earthquake activity down dip into the subduction zone, can't help but wonder what's going on up here at the stream, up on the upstream of the subduction interface area. So we watch this zone pretty closely here for some larger activity, possibly here in the coming hours, possibly coming days here. It's a pretty good swarm of some deeper movement down dip into the subduction zone. So watch that area closely, and there's more earthquakes occurring in this area than what's being shown. Obviously, there's some smaller quakes there in the 2 and 3 range listed up there on the globe. Puerto Rico area seeing an uptick of movement again around the Puerto Rico Trench. This is another area that's been seeing some rather numerous quakes around the area of the Puerto Rico Trench. Now, this zone is definitely capable of producing a pretty good-sized earthquake, rather large earthquake, in fact. Right now, it looks like, for now anyway, about 23 earthquakes in the last 7 days. The largest magnitude looks like a 3.9, but either way, there's been quite a few threes, and some of these deep as well, about 100 kilometers or so into the region there. And of course, Puerto Rico swarming over here around the southwestern edge. That's very typical for that region, for that zone. A lot of movement, a lot of big bullies up here, and I'm talking about the South America area and the North American region. Couple other plates over here, kind of crunching and moving this whole area around, and raising and lowering. There's this. This is. I would not want to be the Caribbean plate. Just gets bullied by these other bigger plates out here. All right. Let's see here. One earthquake into the Gulf of Alaska, 1.9 near Cordova, Alaska. Movement generally light overnight. There is some activity through the Cook Inlet area and up north of Anchorage. But no unusual activity being reported. And again, there's a Western Pacific activity and some movement into the Philippine plate. That's some deeper activity there for sure. One earthquake right now into the Papua New Guinea region, 4.6, 60 kilometers deep. But still waiting, folks, for that signal, that sign here that we're continuing our general plate westward pressure movement here. and so far I haven't really seen it. Some of the deeper earthquakes in the trenches giving us a good indicator of where some strain could be building at the surface levels, and that could be right around the Izu Trench, Mariana Trench, and of course along the Japan Kuril-Kamchatka Trench up here. This section, I've been watching it. This is pretty much highlighted here in this area. Needs to be. Okay, down through New Zealand. Not a whole lot showing up. We did have one 5.0 in the Kermadec Trench area, or Kermadec Islands, Kermadec Trench, 12 kilometers deep. That was yesterday. Now let's give a quick glance here at the GeoNet servers as I pull them up. Stand by for just a second. There we go. And it looks like there's that 4.0 down south here being reported. Let's see. I don't believe the USGS was showing that one there. Right around this area of the plate boundary. 2 hours ago, 33 kilometers deep. Then 3 days ago for the other earthquake activity. But we have to go to the all magnitudes to see some of the reports that have been produced but not felt. And generally, it looks like that 4.0 about the only one of significance. There was a 3.9 2 hours ago. North Island, northward into the Kermadec Trench. Let's go ahead and check out the volcano activity across the volcanic drums here, just temporarily. This kind of gives us a good indicator where some swarming may be happening at various volcanoes, but it also picks up seismograph activity in the region. And it looks like this area, Tapo volcano, looks pretty quiet. There's not a whole lot of localized activity, but here at this region, and I'm not 100% certain how you pronounce that, but you guys can read that area right there. This one's showing a little bit of swarming overnight, but has since died off a lot. There's nothing being reported since yesterday. Alrighty, let's see what else we got here. Yellowstone National Park has been the quiet zone. And today it looks as though it's still fairly quiet. Not a whole lot being reported out there. Yesterday, a couple small, very small microquakes, but man, it's super quiet there. All right, kind of jumped over the rest of the states. There's not a whole lot going on further across the eastern portion of the country. Yellowstone we just checked out. Down here in SoCal, 2 of these earthquakes here from yesterday. We did have one earthquake after midnight at 1.3. A little bit further north up towards the southern end of the San Andreas Fault. I'd like to watch this area when we see swarming around it. That's, this area right here. A lot of folks, if you know geology and study earthquake activity, any scientists, any geologists, seismologists will know that this is the area to watch for the big one in Southern California, southern branch of the San Andreas. 8.1 is what they're possibly expecting when that thing goes. It's been over 300 and something years, so I'd like to watch it when we see some swarming around it. Right now, no swarming, just those couple microquakes from yesterday and one today, but we'll keep our eyes open for any swarming. All right, let's see. New Madrid zone. Yeah, there wasn't really too much going on. This one from yesterday, in fact, 1.6. Aside from that, cold air still sweeping across the area. Goodness. One earthquake here around the Mountain View, Big Island, Hawaii, 2.5. Still seeing some activity around the Kilauea volcano. Let's go ahead and check into that real quick. Been looking at some odd readings on the seismograph station there at Kilauea volcano. Seen that last night. Let's go over here. Both volcanoes, by the way, on the Big Island, Mauna Loa and Kilauea volcano, still sit at a yellow and advisory. Now let's go over here and check this out. We're going to check out this tilt meter first, which is offline. And let's see if we can get another one maybe. This one's all choppy. Can't even see. Goodness. Some of these are just not working at all. Not for sure what's going on with it, but I'm sure they'll fix it, right? So seismograph stations there. Yeah, still seeing a little bit of odd activity here. I'm not for sure what's going on with this. to me, at a volcano, I would see this as some type of magma movement. Something definitely going on underneath the surface areas. Let me check out different seismograph station over here. Maybe that one's offline. I just want to make sure it's not some type of interference. Now, there's that same type of reading here going on with that graph. Same on that one. Let me check one of these other ones here. Same on this one. So I'm convinced whatever's going on is not outside interference, but definitely they're at the Kilauea volcano. And that's not, definitely doesn't look like earthquake activity, but it looks like something moving underground there as far as magma goes for sure. They haven't put out an update yet on, let's see, last update for Kilauea volcano was the 20th, and they've told us that they're only going to do weekly updates now unless something changes. So just kind of watching that for some activity. It's just a little odd readings there on the graph. Let's go ahead and check out the lava lake latest still image there from the USGS. Looks like definitely still somewhat active across the area, but I don't see any visible magma or lava there at the surface levels. Doesn't mean something's not building up below. Because those are definitely some odd readings. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that for the Kilauea volcano. Mauna Loa, let's zoom in here, see if I can get this right. Still sits at yellow as well. Last update was a couple days ago. They're doing weekly updates as well unless something changes. A couple of these seismograph stations are offline. I know they had all sorts of crazy weather, wind events up there as well. I don't see any of those odd readings popping up here around Mauna Loa, just some earthquake activity. Generally light at best there. And some of that movement showing up from the Pahala region, which sits down south of the southeastern flank here of Mauna Loa. But that seismograph station is so locally close to this area that it will pick up these distant earthquakes. Alrighty, so let's see, man, goodness. Looks like a pretty active day so far. As far as earthquake activity goes, definitely a lot more than yesterday. Quick look at the solar ham site, latest updated activity. Looks like these folks are functionable again and back up and running. We definitely appreciate it. I know a lot of folks do use it. Space weather. Flare activity is very minimal. There's not a whole lot going on right now. Only looks like an upper C flare yesterday. And today it looks like we're below that threshold for the C flare category. So not a whole lot of popcorn on the sun today. Looking at the magnetic structure here of the sunspots. Continue to show relatively stable regions across all of these sunspots. Doesn't look like anything's going to be possible here from any of those sunspots right now. There is where's their threat level at? 60% chance for a C flare, M flare at 10%, 1% for X flare. So not a whole lot of exciting activity there across the sun. They got this latest image here. Crazy, right? Santa Claus out there flying around with the reindeer, leaving the image on the sun. Pretty cool. Let's see what we got for current conditions. Still somewhat elevated here on the KP index, up around the 4 range it looks like. I think that is old though. Yeah, this one looks kind of old. December 23rd. So this is not accurate, but we're going to click on it and see. December 23rd, December 24th. Here we go. Here's a little bit more active map. Looks like they need to update their system there, but this is the most recent one up around the 3 to 4 range. This shows the geomagnetic or the KP index here and the storming conditions. Pretty cool. The Space Weather Prediction Center folks have a pretty good graph here and what it all means and the possibilities once we start getting up around the KP index of 8 or 9 or higher. It's been a while since we've seen anything significant like that. But the current aurora forecast, and this one was put out pretty recent. Not a whole lot going on across the the regions as far as aurora forecast goes. Alrighty, guys. Again, have a good weekend. Merry Christmas to those who celebrate. Happy holidays. And, of course, we'll be back here tonight, again, with a complete update. Check that out real quick here, folks, before you guys leave. Check out the earthquake activity still on Petrolia. And Dinsmore Station there in Northern California is still showing some of that activity. Now, these are generally light earthquakes here showing up on the graph. And just a quick glance here at the USGS map will kind of confirm that these guys really don't show all the earthquakes that take place. There's been a lot more than 7 in the last 24 hours. I can guarantee you that. But the reasoning that they're no longer putting out all the little ones, probably because they want to, try and catch up and make sure they don't get overloaded. I guess. A little odd, but looks like they put a stop to the smaller earthquakes. But I kind of utilize those smaller quakes here on the map to define where this activity could be migrating to, if it's getting closer here up to the subduction level at the surface region. This is generally the locked area of the Cascadia that some of this earthquake activity is entering into over here. And these are all subduction zone quakes with these depths, 20 kilometers. This is all upstream of the tremor activity that normally takes place. Down dip, a little bit further, about 35, 45 kilometers. It would be eastward here on the map, but the further east you go on the map, the deeper down into the subduction level it would be. So these are generally up into the where the pressure builds. So I need to watch these. Some of these earthquakes, again, have not, well, this one's been reviewed, but some of the other ones down south have not. And this one struck on the 18th, right there into the Cascadia fold and thrust belt. There's some big names out here. Cascadia mega thrust area. Well, there's a reason for that. This thing can produce a mega quake. I'm not talking about a 6.4. 6.4 did a lot of damage around Eureka, but if we see a 9-pointer out here, even a partial rupture of the Cascadia, say an 8.4, whoo, that's going to be just as bad. All right, folks, we'll keep an eye on it. Definitely keep the live stream up and running, and we got the live seismographs going so we can monitor it all. So we'll see you guys a little bit later tonight. Again, enjoy the time with the families out there, and please stay safe. I know it's a time for folks to party and have a little bit of alcoholic beverages there at parties, but make sure you guys got a sober driver. Stay home if you can. And just be safe out there. It's definitely wouldn't be good to be out driving around after attending a party. Have a good one, folks. We'll catch you guys a little bit later tonight. Peace out.